What's up, Nets fans? Welcome to another live edition of the Brooklyn Buzz. I'm your host, Nick Fay. With me, as always, Jack Manuel. Jack, how you doing?
Don't like losing, Nick.
Yeah, and we're not really used to it anymore, especially in 2019. Only a couple losses. Nets took the L tonight, 114-117 to the Spurs and San Antonio, where they haven't won a game in regulation since 2002. So it's been quite a while. Jack, we'll dive right into it, though. Did you think Shabazz was fouled on that last play?
Yeah, but you don't really get those calls in the final minutes unless you're James Harden. Shabazz is a lesser light, and unless you're a superstar, you don't get those calls.
Yeah, I agree. It's tough to get that call that late. I will say the one thing, the refs were too distracted by Aldridge's arms when they were up in the air, but his knee literally goes like in Shabazz's ass while he's trying to shoot it. So I felt like he should have probably got free throws. No guarantee he's going to knock them down, but I felt like he probably deserved to get to the line. Oh, well, but
I think Shabazz was the only one that made Shabazz and DeMario Carroll were the only ones that made all their free throws, I think.
So maybe he would have hit them all. I know you tweeted this out on the Nets Republic account. The Nets were terrible from the free throw line tonight, 19-29, 10 missed free throws. You don't even have to knock them all down. If you hit 5 more, you probably win this game.
Yeah, simple as that. And we started off the first half not being able to really penetrate the paint, create any contact, and a lot of credit goes to the San Antonio defense for that. But in the second half, we started to get some momentum on that end. But if you don't make the free throws, it's not really going to make a difference. It sort of just slows the game down and sort of in ways goes into San Antonio's hands. It gives it some rest, and they just like to slow the game down anyway. Play a really methodical style of basketball, but they made more threes than us as well, which we talked about as well. Only one, but we talked about that in the pregame. They did take almost as many as us as well. So it was essentially the free throws, Nick, because we did very well in pretty much all other aspects of the game.
Yeah, you mentioned it too. The first quarter, they weren't necessarily great. I believe they only had 5 free throw attempts in the first half, so that's 24 for the second half. The pace felt higher in the second half, which was good. Obviously, in that third quarter, they scored 38 points. Things just were starting to click, and then they kind of slowed down and got out of their offense.
Yeah, and I think that last mini run is emblematic of what the San Antonio Spurs can do. The talent of a guy like LaMarcus Aldridge, Derek White was hitting some threes, some miscommunication from Joe Harris and stuff on the three. Those sort of lapses cost you games, unfortunately, in today's day and age. And this is one that got away, but you have to reassess, readjust, and go on to the next one.
Yeah, I feel like against an extremely well-coached team like the Spurs, you really can't run the zone that long and that late in the game. I think Kenny should have elected to go man-to-man, especially at like that 2-minute mark.
Yeah, I think it was effective for the most part, but at the same time, you have to trust your guys, and there were some lapses. D'Angelo Russell giving that dinky little foul, which he didn't have to. I think it was on Forbes, if not White. That's an unnecessary foul, obviously sending them to the line. So there were just some mental lapses which cost you games against a quality opponent. There were plenty of things we did well, but just not enough at the right time.
Yeah, like you said, too many mental mistakes. It was just plays on the floor. Is it missing a 3-point shooter? Is it making a dumb foul? Is it just not making the right pass or trying to force something in late in the game? Just against a team like the Spurs, being shorthanded, I think you need to play a little bit better and a little bit more engaged for the entire game.
Yeah, I mean, we just hung around. It was one of those close sort of games. Both teams sort of went on runs. The third quarter, Brooklyn Nets' signature quarter this season anyway, was the one where we sort of were able to go on a bit of a run. D'Angelo went on some mini solo runs. Late Joe Harris, took us back to lead with a couple of threes himself. So it was a game of swing, momentum, like a lot of NBA games are. And at the end of it, San Antonio would just, if it hadn't gone to OT, I would have had a little bit of confidence in the Nets. Despite the fact that we were away, because it seemed to me that we were creating a little bit of momentum, at least late, especially with that Shabazz foul and such. But at the end of the day, the San Antonio Spurs probably deserved this win. If we had made our free throws, it would have just been a very different thing.
Exactly, and the Spurs were good from the free throw line, so we obviously weren't. Do you feel like this is a game where they miss Spencer Dinwiddie, especially late in the clutch moments?
I think we miss Spencer Dinwiddie in every game, but this one especially, I think just being able to probably make his free throws as well. I think you just sort of set the tone from there. I think Shabazz was serviceable, and there were times where he was penetrating the defense and creating open looks, and his body control down there was pretty good. So, I mean, we're probably going to remiss on the loss of Spencer for quite a while. But with the caliber that we had, we had the capabilities to get this one done. So I think it's a missed opportunity, but one you can't really dwell on.
Well, getting into some of the players, Jack, what did you think about D'Angelo Russell's game? 25 points, 10 of 26 from the field, 2 of 7 from 3, 3 of 4 from the free throw line, 5 rebounds, 9 assists, 4 turnovers.
It's an all-star game, Nick. He just went on his runs. 3 of 4 as well, like you mentioned, 9 assists. The 4 turnovers was probably the big thing that was probably the negative part. He made some unnecessary plays, as did a lot of guys, just forcing the issue. Williams Court's 3 turnovers, Joe Harris 3 turnovers, and Monday 3 turnovers in only 18 minutes. So you just don't want to force the issue too much, because despite the fact that the Nets absolutely exceeded San Antonio in fast break points, you don't want to give them any extra opportunities and just give them the ball back, because they are a clinical team. So other than the turnovers, it was a very good performance from D'Angelo. Late down the stretch, there were some, like I mentioned, some mental lapses. His final play where he missed that shot and hustled for the rebound, got us the opportunity to get the win, which was awesome. So without him, we're not in this game. But at the same time, he had some chances to get us the W, but it just didn't go his way tonight.
Yeah, I thought he was solid. He wasn't one of his best games, but I did appreciate the hustle plays, throughout the game. Some of those, getting for those rebounds, poking out for some steals. I think one thing, we saw a little bit better in the previous matchup against Chicago. He attacked a little bit more physically inside for some of his layups, and sometimes he's just a little too timid. Instead of trying to draw the contact, he's afraid to be blocked, which I think sometimes he just needs to get in there and go. Where there's especially when his teardrop wasn't, or float, or whatever you want to call it, was a little off tonight.
Yeah, I think it was probably more the San Antonio defense wasn't giving him much, and were closing out a lot better, it seemed, compared to Chicago. And obviously that created, the timid nature from D'Angelo. There was some video posted by, I think it was Ben Pfeiffer, just putting out the fact that if he can just draw the contact in certain occasions, it just makes it opens up the whole game for a guy like him, and really, takes him the next step. But I think San Antonio's defense and their scouting on him was much better than the Chicago team. But it was just, I understand what you're saying, and that's where D'Angelo really needs to take the next step in his game.
Yeah, 100%. And like you said, obviously the Spurs are 100 times better than the Bulls. No offense to them, but his shot was a little bit off tonight too. It wasn't necessarily like on a perfect touch. Damari had some really clutch moments in this game. 18 points, 5 of 13 from the field, 3 of 8 from the 3-point line, 5 of 7 from the free throw line, 5 rebounds, 2 assists, only 1 turnover. It felt like he hit a lot of big shots that either kept the Nets in it or gave them a small lead.
Yeah, my boy, and I spoke about him as sort of being the ancillary piece that would be really important tonight. Damari stepped up as he always did. 3 threes, 3 of 8 from deep, 5 free throws, 5 of 7 from there. Just getting some clutch rebounds. Only the 1 turnover. He's just a net positive, and he was out there in clutch time. He's just super important to this Nets team, and he just does all the right things at the right time. Hits the shots. He looks confident, which is a really positive thing for the Nets.
Yeah, he looks very active too. He just looks healthy, fully springy. It's not like he's the most athletic guy, but he just looks good out there. Your boy Joe Harris looks like he's getting back in rhythm. 18 points, 7 of 10 from the field, 3 of 5 from the 3-point line, and the 3 makes were probably contested threes. Maybe one of them was open, but Joe's getting a lot more attention, like we've talked about, and he's starting to hit those contested threes a little bit more.
Yeah, he's just going to keep taking them because he knows he can make them. He doesn't want to necessarily look back to the coaches. He wants to be, a consummate teammate, a consummate professional, and he is. But if you're that good at taking the threes, just take the bad ones, Joey. We need him to take 5 to 10 a night minimum, and he did that tonight. 3 or 5 from there. Did get some really strong takes as well. Some, especially that one on the Marcus Aldridge, which was really awesome. But there were some mistakes, that defensive lapse, as I mentioned, Derek White late, and a couple of turnovers, like a lot of our guys, just forced the issue, trying to create something out of nothing rather than just making the simple play. Yeah, and if he starts to take more contested threes, he's likely to get some foul calls too, because guys are trying to close out so hard on him. But like you said, that take on Aldridge was probably his best take of the season. He literally bodied up a guy who probably has 75 pounds and 6 inches on him, or 5 inches, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, he just does it well. Like I was confident in him making that. I think that's probably one of the plays that he seems really confident in. He has, great body control, great strength for a guy of his size, and he doesn't really fear anyone. LaMarcus Aldridge isn't necessarily Rudy Gobert, but he is, a very serviceable big man, especially on at least on the defensive end. So, Joey Buckets has no fear.
Yeah, no, 100%. And you, like you said, feel very confident with Joe going inside, regardless who's kind of in there. He does a great job positioning his body or creating the contact where the rim protector can't necessarily get a good angle on him. The 20-year-olds, showed some nice flashes tonight. Jared Allen had some really nice moments. Rodion's had some really nice moments. What stuck out about these two?
Yeah, I think Jared Allen's offensive game looked really good. He looked confident. He used his tools to his advantage. He's not strong, so he just shows off the spin move. He shows off the craftiness, and he runs the floor hard. That block of DeMar DeRozan, which you posted, Nick, and running the floor as well was, sensational. And for a guy like Rodion's, 10 rebounds. It looked like he was just super active there. 3 offensive rebounds, leading the team in that department. I think that's where Rodion's can, when his shot isn't falling, which it hasn't been necessarily of late, he's looked really good on the boards. And he has, some really good athleticism. And we love his drives, we love his cutting. So all those things Rodion's continues to do well. The shot's going to fall.
Yeah, the three-point shot, that's obviously he's struggling with that right now. I think the one thing I would prefer from him is to just stick to catch and shoot threes, not the ones where he's kind of coming off the screen or has to make one dribble. But like you said, some of the other stuff from Rodion's was great. One thing that stuck out for me and that we've seen a little bit, just small flashes, is his passing ability. When he had that drive at the one point, the Nets came out of a timeout or a commercial break, whatever it was, got to the rim, dropped it off for Jared Allen for an easy dunk. That's the stuff I like to see. I like him driving to the rim. There was another play where he hit somebody with a crossover, got inside, and he just kind of powered it to the rim. And obviously he's a rookie, so he's not really getting calls. I think next year we're going to see him at the free throw line a lot more too.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I really like both of those plays. And you sort of expect him to finish with the left on that sort of play you were talking about, Nick. And he has the body control and the contortion to somehow finish it off the glass. If he just continues to drive, then the three ball is going to fall. I think that both of them go hand in hand. I don't think necessarily we need Rodion's to be, elite from that area yet. We just need him to be a threat, which he is. And I think he's going to get more confident there as the season goes on. We've talked about Karis LeVert in the past in terms of his three-point shot, and he's shown a lot of improvement there. So it happens. You have your waning shooting nights, and it comes and goes, and it's, even the best happen. Paul George had it last season as well. So I'm confident in Rodion's game, and I think he's going to be a very special player. Best Latvian player in New York, ladies and gents.
Yes, that is true, obviously, with the Porzingis trade. And just like Rodion's is only 20 years old. Like, I can't wait till he puts some real muscle on. When he's driving to the rim with his body contortion, like you mentioned, Jack, he's just going to be able to get in there and make some real big plays. And touching on Jared Allen, like you said, we talked about patience. He had a great patience tonight. Instead of just rushing, trying to get that shot up, he kind of took a second, got a couple and ones. He might not have hit the free throws, but still, I really like we saw from Jared Allen. You talked about that play where he got the block and then ran the floor to the other end and got the layup in the and one. Like, that's the stuff that Jared Allen can do that can kind of push him to the next level. And it's just such an asset for the Nets, especially against a guy like Aldridge, who's not going to really beat him in a foot race.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's one area where you can get easy buckets. And I think D'Angelo, who is a great passer, can find him in certain situations. If you run the floor, you get you easy buckets. It's like Clint Capella and James Harden have that synergy where Clint Capella just runs the floor hard. He gets like 5 easy buckets a night because of James Harden's passing acumen. So, if Jared Allen can continue to do that, he's going to outrun a lot of opponents, especially those lumbering centers like LaMarcus who can't get out and break.
And we saw Jared knock down a 3 tonight, which is always fun.
That was a really nice story. That looked really smooth, and I think even Kevin Pelton of ESPN tweeted it out. So I think it's going to be over. I told you that for Nets Republic. It'll be over if he can hit that consistently. But he looked smooth, and the form looks good. I think it was since December, early December, since he made his last 3. But you're just going to hit him every now and then, and it'll come with time.
Yeah, I think he started off the season in Detroit knocking down 2 or 3, so everyone was kind of a little overexcited. But obviously, it's going to be a long development, but still, only 20 years old. Expect both those guys to really work on the three-point shot. Talking about some of the other bench guys, Ed Davis did his regular thing, 11 rebounds in 19 minutes. He's just a monster down there, not really much else to say. What'd you think about Rodion's Rondé and Treveon Graham tonight?
Yeah, I think a lot of they seem to be the whipping boys of the Brooklyn Nets right now. Rondé, whenever he has the ball in his hands, I'm a little bit wary, a little bit hesitant because he can be a little bit out of control. But I think he needs to be better defensively as well. Rudy Gay was eating him up in a lot of possessions as well, which is something that shouldn't be happening because, Rudy Gay, despite the fact that he is, a very capable player, he's aging, has had an Achilles injury, and Rondo Hollis-Jefferson, yes, he has had his injury issues himself, but should not be getting cooked by a guy like Rudy Gay off the dribble and such. So, and Trevion Graham, there was this one shot, the only shot he hit from the night was like a nice spin fade move. And I think he just needs to be that defensive stalwart who can hit the three every now and then. But him and Rondé, I think they're sort of interchangeable depending on who's playing better, who looks better offensively, and who looks better defensively.
Yeah, I think Graham does a better job of body positioning and being a little bit tougher. You mentioned Rondé getting taken to the rim by Rudy Gay, and it wasn't even like he was getting beat like foot speed wise. He would just position himself in a way that Rudy Gay could kind of just get a shot up. So it's just like Rondé needs to be better fundamentally and just prevent guys from getting easily to the rim because we know he has the athletic tools. It's just like he can't put together. And a guy like Trevion Graham, who is not as athletic, but he's probably stronger and a little bit more fundamentally sound, does a better job out there.
Yeah, the fundamentals will always make up for talent and athleticism, despite the fact that, athleticism is such an important trait to have in today's NBA. But Trevion does make up for it in other ways, like you mentioned it. But, with these two, the Nets aren't going to be a serious contender as either of them as starters. Just to some real talk right now. Despite the fact that they both do good things, defensively, hustle, energy, those sort of things, the Nets aren't going to be a real threat. And when one of them is out there, it does hurt the offense quite a bit.
100%. I think these are guys that maybe you can have as your fifth starter when you have 2 or 3 all-stars in the lineup, and they can kind of hide that. If he was starting on Golden State, I don't think it would really matter. But on the Nets, they need to have somebody who can provide more offensively. They're both bench guys, and there's nothing wrong with that. Graham's paid like a bench guy. Rondé, there was kind of some hope he could maybe be a starter. It's looking like he's going to be a bench player moving forward. So getting that 4. Now, talking about that, Jack, we kind of mentioned a little bit. Do you think the Nets should get active and try to add a 4 for this season?
I mean, yeah, Nick. I mean, if there's a guy like Trey Lyles on the market for nothing, and Sean Marks can fleet Del Demps because he's too busy thinking about Anthony Davis and Colin Mirotic maybe as well. But I just don't think it's that necessary. I think that it's a slow process. It's a building process, and there's other teams that are probably going to be more desperate to make moves than the Nets right now because we've got some guys in reserve in the wings that can add some value. If you had Jared Dudley in Trevion Graham's place and Rondo Hollis-Jefferson's place in a lot of these games and moments, I think his level-headedness and his leadership would have a real impact, despite the fact that he's not everyone's favorite player, and even Alan Crabb, in that final play where we needed a 3, just having that extra threat out there rather than a guy like Trevion Graham, just changes the entire dynamics of the floor. So I think that we've got enough guys in reserve that we don't need to really get haphazard about things, but. Obviously, Sean Marks is going to be taking those calls.
Yeah, I think you brought up a great point about Dudley. Not necessarily he's an amazing defender, but if the Nets are going to continue to run a lot of zone, having a guy who's experienced out there and communicate well is ideal. And also, Jack, when, let's just say, Karis LeVert's back or Alan Crabb's back, do you think they should consider starting Rodions at the 4?
Yeah, I think it'll be matchup dependent. I think that reading from everything that Graham has said, it seems he has earned the trust of the coaching staff, and obviously for defensive purposes, I think he's more likely. And I think even Rodions could benefit from coming off the bench at times as well. I think that he'd be a great spark in terms of what he brings with a guy like Shabazz as well. So I mean, I think that they're probably interchangeable, but it's more likely that Trevion Graham starts because. I think that the Nets like to have that balance of defense and offense.
When they get fully healthy, do you think they'll consider starting Damari at the 4? He's just been so great on the bench that you just don't mess with it.
That's what I think should start, Nick. He's been by far the Nets' best wing this season in terms of what he brings and his play, just drawing fouls, making the right calls, the leadership, hitting the 3 ball. I personally would, but then it does leave your bench depth, waning somewhat. As the saying tends to go, so you'd rather be finishing than starting, which Damari has been doing in a lot of clutch moments.
Yeah, 100%. So like you said, it doesn't necessarily matter a ton if he's finishing games. It's definitely going to be some interesting lineup combinations. I think we're going to see Kenny experiment if everyone gets healthy at one point. Obviously, that's an if. Hopefully, we do see that soon. Any thoughts on Alan Crabb? I was hoping that we'd see him by the end of the month, but we have really no idea what's going on with him.
We have no idea with half the injuries with the Brooklyn Nets, Nick. I wish that there was some transparency, but at the same time, it is what it is. I think Alan Crabb, if he comes back, he comes back. Is he going to be a salary dump? I don't think so. I think he's more likely to just kick around for a little bit. And I think you can add something even if he's just a body. Eat up some minutes on some nights. And I think, with Napier and Spencer Dinwiddie will be back sooner rather than later at the same time. So there's plenty of guys in the wings that the Nets don't really need to go crazy about, the Nets need to fall, the Nets need to fall. Yeah, they do, but at the same time, you'd rather just wait it out and see what you can get and keep that flexibility going forward.
Yeah, it's definitely something to consider. And like we've kind of mentioned before, I know personally, I think if the Nets were to dump Crab, it'd be more likely to happen in the offseason than to happen right now.
It doesn't make sense to do it now. There's already one haphazard rash team in New York, and we don't need to be another.
Yeah, exactly. So, Jack, any other final thoughts on the game? Anything else you want to touch on?
I thought we were really great, Nick, in terms of points in the paint. I think we, nearly doubled, I believe, or were somewhere around that range against the Spurs tonight, despite the fact that we were out rebounded. Yeah, it was 54-38 in points in the paint. So, and fast break points as well. So there were just so many elements of this game where we did well, but I think the Spurs just were too good at the end of the day, and that mini run at the end is essentially what cost us in those mini lapses. So hopefully that allows us to watch some film on the plane and stuff, and talk to the vets as our young guys like to do. Have some film sessions with the coach, and then reassess before Milwaukee, I believe.
We actually got Orlando on Saturday.
So another time.
Yeah, I agree, Jack. I think this is a good learning experience because they were right there. If they clean up the mental mistakes, you're on the road against a good team. The Spurs are the 6th seed. I think going to this game, they had 30 wins. Now they have 31. And, you're not going to get as many favorable calls. The Nets don't get a ton of favorable calls at home anyways. But on the road, it's going to be a little tougher. And I think there's plenty to learn. And it was almost a good test / like humbling event because the Nets kind of need to lose sometimes, especially in close games, because I don't want to say they've gotten lucky, but they've had some nice bounces go their way and hitting some shots. So now they have to kind of learn and grind out some of these close games against better teams.
Yeah, you can't DJ Khaled everything. You can't win no matter what. Despite the fact that, the god himself, the champagne, whatever you want to call him. I don't really like DJ. You're a DJ Khaled fan, Nick?
Not really. I think he's just like a good hype man. I mean, he makes good beats. Like, don't give him credit for that, but like, obviously, he just like makes noise in the songs.
I reckon he's a ghost producer. There's no way that he does all that sort of stuff, and he just probably got good connections and knows how to market. But I think in terms of grinding out these sort of wins, Nick, I think like you said, there's a learning experience going forward. In terms of doing it against the Chicago Bulls and other lesser-like teams, it's fine. But I think, you're supposed to you prove it against the better teams. So if we can do it against, we've done it against some of them, but if we continue to do it, and, I think each game is just a new opportunity for this team. And hopefully the teams around us continue to lose and we can get a few wins in the bank going into Orlando, Milwaukee, because it's like we mentioned in the pregame, will be a pretty tough stretch.
Yeah, this is going to be a tough stretch coming up. Just to give a quick heads up, we got Orlando on Saturday, Milwaukee on Monday at home, Denver at home Wednesday, Chicago at home Friday. Then they got 2 days off, and then they have Toronto in Toronto, and then they have Cleveland in Cleveland on Wednesday before All-Star break. So I think over this next 6-game stretch, the Nets need to come away with at least 3 wins. At least – maybe if they get 4, that would be super ideal. But I think you need to beat Orlando, you need to beat Chicago, and you need to beat Cleveland. And then you hope to God you can beat Milwaukee, Denver, or Toronto, at least one of them.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's probably going to be some surprises along the way. I think that there might be some, whether it's a surprise loss, whether it's a surprise win. I think that no win is given. I think every game has to be earned in today's league. But before we head off, Nick, unruly star, will Russell get that final All-Star spot? Obviously, we talked about it in the pregame, but let's revisit it.
I feel confident about him. I mean, I feel like he should get it. That doesn't necessarily mean he will. And just kind of thinking about the All-Star, like reserves and snubs and whatever, it just feels like the guys are going towards like the veteran guys, like guys who maybe don't even necessarily deserve All-Stars this year, but they're kind of getting it off rep. Like Chris Middleton just keeps coming to mind. Like he didn't make the All-Star team last year, but I felt like he had such a better season last year. and he didn't get in, and now he got in this year. And then Kyle Lowry, like we talked about, he's missed a ton of games. He got in, and he didn't necessarily deserve. I mean, I think D'Lo should get in, but I wouldn't be surprised if Jimmy Butler got the nod.
Yeah, Middleton played pretty well against Leonard tonight, just despite you, Nick, apparently.
Yeah, he heard me talking ish.
But I think D'Angelo, as much as he deserves it, like you mentioned, Jimmy Butler, Eric Bledsoe, those sort of guys will probably have the earned respect of like coaches, and like I mentioned in the pregame, it's going to be tough to sort of crack in. Ben Simmons has had such a great season, but Jimmy Butler is sort of like, when you think of him, you think All-Star, because he's like a top 20 player, and he's top 15 on a really good day as well. So you just sort of reward those guys on reputation, whereas Russell has established a reputation, but it's been a lot shorter, and then guys like Bledsoe and Butler. But again, just prepare for the right guys, get the right gear ready.
Yeah, and I think like a lot of media people have advocated for Russell, especially because the Nets are in a position that a lot of people didn't expect him to be in going to the season. So that should maybe help. And I guess the only other thing, if I'm Adam Silver, I know that he does kind of refer to the coaches' vote a lot of the time on this and just goes the next guy up. But like from a league perspective, it would make more sense for them to get another team in the All-Star game being Brooklyn instead of having 3 people for, Philadelphia or Milwaukee.
Yeah, I mean, Adam Silver's on Twitter apparently had that like ghost sort of what are they called? The bot ones?
Yeah. I don't know what they're called.
What's Katie? Burner. That's what they're called. He's got like apparently he had a burner that he deleted a while ago. If we can somehow find that and spam him like crazy, maybe we can get D'Angelo in. But no, I think I would be happy with Joe Harrison 3-point contest. I mean, I need Joe Harrison the 3-point contest. It needs to happen. But D'Angelo would be obviously a welcome addition as well to the All-Star festivities. But who knows with the NBA? We're not getting a lot of respect these Brooklyn Nets.
Yeah, and I think Joe Harris not getting in would just be really annoying, and it would just prove that the 3-point contest isn't about the best 3-point shooters. It's more so about like the names, because Dame Lillard getting in, he's not shooting a great percentage. He's at 37%. He's already made the All-Star team. For the NBA, it makes more sense to just get more people involved with All-Star Weekend instead of having the same names. Like, it just makes more sense to have as many people as possible. But we could rant about this all night, Jack. As always, thank everybody for checking in, comments, listening, viewership, whatever it is. We really appreciate the support. Be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Subscribe on iTunes, Blog Talk Radio, OTGBasketball.com, NetsRepublic.com, _radio. So, and Jack, always a pleasure. Peace, guys.